Rick makes me sound better, so I appreciate that. World renowned and travels. 30 years I've been doing this work, and it's an honor, it's a blessing to be with you guys, especially under what this is about, what this is for. I've known Rick for many years, and Fred, and I've come down and recognized many of you. It's great to be in this line of work, but it's getting more difficult in some ways than it's ever been. As Rick mentioned, I work in Tyler now part-time. I still do the ministry work, and what happened was I'd done what I call a Battle Ready Rally. Battle Ready Rallies started about 8, 9, maybe 10 years ago. The concept behind it was, on the ministry work, radix. Radix is a Latin word, it means roost, to root something, or faith and so forth. I was walking through my office one day back in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I turned to my son and I said, "Son, we need to come up with something to wake up the fighting spirit of men. We've got a lot of men out there in the Catholic faith who become very soft, somewhat, I say, neutered, when it comes to really being a fighter and a warrior for the faith. Because 24/7, 365 days a year, guys, we are to be engaging the spiritual battle, especially for those that have been entrusted to our care. Wives, children, community, school, so forth. And I said to my son, we gotta help him wake up, be ready for that fight. Because a lot of the conferences I was speaking at, I was hearing the men tell me that they were struggling really with getting a masculine concept of being Catholic. Like, man, a Christian idea of manhood has become very passive, very soft in many respects. And the physical aspect, even, the psychological aspect of a fighter and a warrior has been somewhat almost surgically removed from many men. And so I'm saying to myself, man, wake up the fighting spirit. I was all on a tirade that day. Son, I got to do something. Help him get ready for the fight, ready for the battle. My son turned and said, yeah, be battle ready. And I said, oh, I like it. I said, let's do that. So I started to write about it, and I would send emails out. And I was asking some of the people in Lincoln, Nebraska, where I'm from, some of my friends. I said, hey guys, what do you think about this? I talked to some of the men, some of my buddies up there, and I said, this is what I'm thinking about trying to do. I'm just going to do emails. Started with just emails. And I was sending them out 5-6 days a week. I have a clipboard over here, red clipboard if you want to sign up. I send them out maybe once a week, sometimes every other week, because we're busy with so many other things, and I don't want to inundate people because we're all just hammered with emails, we know that. So I don't want to do too much. But I was doing them one a day for 5-6 days a week, and the numbers were growing. Now, funny thing is, when we got to, well, I should tell you that the emails were basically about being prepared spiritually, physically, mentally, the idea of body, mind, soul. How do we develop our minds to be more deeply Catholic men? Study, read, know the catechism, know the lives of the saints, read what the church teaches and the history of our faith. There's a richness to it that a lot of us just kind of let go by the wayside. And then also, of course, we need to be physically prepared. We need to take care of our bodies. We're temples of the Holy Spirit. God wants to take care of the temple, maintain the temple. But most importantly, spiritually, we need to be spiritually in tune. It's the most difficult labor that there is. You have physical labor, intellectual labor, and spiritual labor. And the spiritual labor is the hardest. The saints will say this. Deep relationship with God. Prayer time is difficult. A lot of people don't pray the rosary, for example, because they say it's too boring and takes too long. It's 15 to 20 minutes. I'm willing to bet that we won't have a problem watching a football game today, LSU or Nebraska. They're actually playing right now. We'll watch 3.5 hours of football, won't we? But 15 to 20 minutes to pray this is a challenge for us. Okay, I'm sorry guys, we're getting soft if that's where we are with this. So the idea of spiritual work, spiritual training is most important, no question. But the physical and the intellectual also have to be there. Train the mind, train the body, train the soul. So that was the concept, that was the idea. I'm writing about these things, and I'm sending the emails out. And my son is kind of going through, correlating different emails, the names and so forth. And after several months or so, he says, Dad, we're looking at about 1,000 people who signed up for this. He says, Dad, roughly 30 to 35% are women. And I was kind of surprised by that because all the dialogue, the conversation is very military sounding, it's very combative, and I'm thinking, I wonder why the ladies are really getting into this. So at the time, I was still going down to do Life on the Rock at EWTN. I'd fly down to Alabama every other week or every week sometimes. Do the shows, and we have a live audience oftentimes, and sometimes women would come up to me after the show, and they would come up to me and talk to me about different things, about the show, or about the Battle Ready message, and I would start asking them, why are you following the Battle Ready message? Because they were telling me, I'm signed up, because I had mentioned on the show, sign up for us if you want, go to our website, sign up, get the emails. And women were saying, oh, I love it. And the number one reason was women were saying, I get it. I know we're in a spiritual fight. And I know we need fighters who are ready to go. Second reason they were saying, I want the men in my life to be lit. I want them on fire. And so women were taking the emails and sending them to the men. I've had women come up after a talk in a parish somewhere, walk up to the clipboard and put 5 emails down there. Their husband, their 4 sons. So men are getting emails wondering, where's this coming from? Mom's over there going, I did that. Never did that. I know one lady, she's a daughter, a family business, and she had 4 brothers and a father, and they work out in the field, farming community side, but they build tractor implements and so forth up in Iowa. And she said, I print out all of the emails that come out, and I put a copy of them in each of the place settings of my brothers and my dad for supper every day they come out. So this is what women were wanting and are still wanting us men to be ready for the fight. They don't want passive, soft, lazy, apathetic, lethargic men. They want men who are ready to look at the threat, be it spiritual or otherwise, and be ready to go. And this is the whole concept behind what I feel very called, very prompted to really address. In our world today, a lot of us have gotten soft. We've gotten very complacent. For example, when it comes to self-defense, which I do address sometimes in my presentations, I'm a big believer that every man should have some idea what he's going to do to defend himself and defend his loved ones. Every man should have some concept, some idea of how to fight, to protect and defend. And I've asked men all over the country, one-to-one or in group settings, what's your idea of self-defense? And several times guys have said, 911. Okay, so someone's going to kick in your front door, you're going to call 911. Yeah, you darn right, that's my first move right there. Okay, not a bad move, but tell me, what's the response time? Could be 2, 3, 4 minutes if you're good, if you're lucky. Right? Could be 60 seconds if you're really lucky. How much damage can happen in 60 seconds? Okay? The Dayton shooting that just recently took place, for example, those law enforcement who stepped up and took care of the situation and took the gunman down, they said they took him down within 30 to 60 seconds. 9 people were dead. It was 7 to 9. I think it was 9. Within a minute. Right? Men, we have to be our own first responders, physically and spiritually. We have to be ready when the conflict and crisis is upon us to engage in some way, shape, or form. So that's the idea behind the battle ready message. So I'm sending these emails out, and then a guy calls me and he says, hey Doug, would you come down to Kentucky and do a talk in a church on the stuff you're writing about? I said, yeah, that sounds great. So I go down there, and it's officially the first official battle ready rally we do. A couple hundred people show up, and the guy that kind of organized it, I find out later he's a former Secret Service for the White House. 22 years, he's now a permanent deacon. He's writing a book, or was, called Secret Service to Sacred Service. Pretty cool name. Good guy. And so we're talking, and I'm learning a lot from him on different things. And this is the beginning of these battle-ready rallies. So the battle-ready rallies I've been doing all over the country for a long time now, for many, many years. And during these battle-ready rallies, what I've found over and over, we can get into these types of conversations, and we kind of peel away a lot of the sanctimonious, sort of lofty approach of our Catholic faith. You really address what's happening in the world, what's happening in men's lives, and you see, number one, gentlemen, a lot of us guys have become soft, as I've mentioned. I'm not saying you all are. I don't know you, so I'm not judging anybody. But a lot of us have become mentally soft. Spiritually, we might have a little bit of grit, but even a lot of guys spiritually aren't on fire and locomoted and ready to go. But when it comes to the threats of our society, when you bring that into the equation, a lot of us are not ready to handle what is at our doorstep or already in the room. For example, down here, you all just recently, I've heard, dealt with the, I'm going to say one time and then change the name, the LGBTQ crowd from now on to the alphabet group, okay? It's easier to say. So the alphabet group, what have they been doing? What have they been doing down here? Did they not recently try to turn June, the month of June, into gay pride sort of thing, and your city council voted it down by 1 vote, I think is what it was. That's too close. Especially in the area, it's what, 70 or so percent Catholic? 66% Catholic. This should not even be on the battlefield in a place like this. Right? But this is where we are. But the alphabet group isn't stopping. They're all over the place. Right? They are everywhere. They're going after any institution out there. One of the ways they do this is through the drag queen story times I referred to. And this is in libraries everywhere across the country. And when I go out and talk about these sorts of things, and I see men in the crowd, I see men in men's conferences, I don't care if it's 30 guys or 1,000 guys or 3,000 guys out there, you see them, a lot of guys are thinking, yeah, we're against it, but we don't know what to do. I mean, first and foremost, we've got to be men who are spiritually ready. And to quote a good friend of mine, Father Richard Heilman from up in Wisconsin, he and I just started doing a podcast called the U.S. Grace Force podcast. He started U.S. Grace Force after President Trump said he wanted to found the U.S. Space Force. Father Heilman says, oh, I got an idea. We'll come up with the U.S. Grace Force. And he's got up to 60,000 people signed up who are members of the U.S. Grace Force. And these are people that right now, at this current time, are engaged in a 54-day Rosary Novena from August 15th to October 13th, preparing for the Rosary Coast to Coast event, which takes place in October, where Rosary rallies are taking place all over the world. Last year we did this with 52 countries that had Rosary rallies, and they prayed the Rosary at the same time. And that's the goal, is whatever your time zone is, that's when you pray the Rosary anywhere in the world. And 52 countries last year do it, and it's growing by leaps and bounds. But his whole point, Father Heilman, is this. You want to be a man of God? First and foremost, make sure you are in the state of grace. Stay in the state of grace. If you're not, get in the state of grace. Fight to be in the state of grace. Because without that, we can't clearly hear God work like He can in our hearts and in our lives. So we have to, first and foremost, put first things first. And that is be in that state of grace so we can hear God. We can let God's grace animate us and work and move through us. So we've got to be in that state of grace. And then secondly, we have to, of our own free will, act upon that grace, and we have to train for the battle. Spiritually, all the time, because it's always there. We're all attacked and hit one way, shape, or form, world, flesh, and devil, as the church teaches. And we're hit with the 7 deadly sins. They've been around from the beginning, they'll be around to the end. Anybody here attacked and affected by greed, anger, sloth, pride, lust, any of these types of things, gluttony, and all 7 deadly sins, right? Yeah, this was like, that's me. One guy puts his hand up. Thank you for being honest back there. The rest of you, nope, never had that one. Never had that one. Maybe a little bit of, no pride either. Never had pride. Point is, we know we're here with these things. Anybody here, raise your hand if you've ever been in confession for the same sin over and over and over and over and over. That's it. That's us, except Rick. He's over there, no hand up. He says, are you kidding, man? Free peanuts. All right. We know we get hammered and beaten and kicked and slapped around by the temptations of the world of flesh and the devil. We have got to be fighters. We have to have the attitude of a fighter. We have to have the attitude that we're ready to go into that combat situation, not to see if we can deal with it, but to come out of it victorious. Scripture even says, God says, I did not give you a tepid spirit, a spirit of timidity. I gave you a spirit of power, love, magnificence. We're supposed to be men that will lead our families and our communities, especially you here at John Paul the Great, this school. To be men who will lead your families, your children, and be part of this powerful and very necessary institution in today's day and age. Men who are warrior-minded. Visualize a wall around the entire campus. 35 acres, what you got here? 35 acres. Imagine a wall around the entire 35 acres. And imagine the alphabet crowd, the alphabet group is running at your wall with everything they've got. And you guys are the ones that need to get on that wall. Man that wall, pick your spot, lock arms, spread out maybe, however you got to do it. And you're locked and loaded with your rosary in one hand, your holy water in the other. And keep a sidearm on your hip if you need it. But the point being, we've got to be men that have that attitude. And men that are united. Groups like this, meetings like this, are critical and essential. I see all over the country a real hunger from men who want to fight. But they've been so kind of neutered or watered down, and kind of we become tepid, and we become soft, and we let ourselves get soft. I mean, shame on us, men. What's the number one commercial practically you see for football, or even if you're watching, Fox News in the evenings, what's one of the number one commercials about men that you see out there where they normally push them out? Low T, right? Testosterone problems, you got testosterone problems. Who's the baseball player? the big herd. What's his name?
Frank Thomas.
Frank Thomas. And he's out there, and my workouts are different now because I take eugenics, you know? It's not an ad for eugenics here, okay? The camera going here. All right. But we keep shoving this idea down that we're not men anymore because of our testosterone. We're not men anymore oftentimes because we have lost touch with what God really wants us to be. I mean, when it comes to spiritual matters, we are either low T or even no T sometimes. Because we have lost touch with the call of God in our hearts. We're supposed to be warrior-minded. For the right reasons, in the right way, and expressed in the right fashion, the right times. I'm not talking about being a brute. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, and I forget the saint that said this, but when a man grows in devotion to Mary, for example, to bless another, like praying the rosary, and I bring this up because a lot of men have told me over the years, in one way, shape, or form, yeah, pray the rosary, but you know, that's my grandma's prayer. A friend of mine, David Cavillo, he wrote a book called Real Men Pray the Rosary. You may have heard of the book of the ministry. It's Real Men Pray the Rosary. He's got a great website out there. He encourages men to pray the rosary. And he's a lawyer down in the Valley area, originally of Texas, down in the Callan area. I've been down here a couple dozen times doing work with them. And one of the things he wrote in the book was, I grew up thinking that the rosary was for old ladies and funerals. That's the only time he ever heard it. When women prayed it at funerals or in their women's groups. Because husbands and fathers were not pulling that rosary out, turning to their kids and saying, get in the room, we're praying the rosary, because this is warfare, and I want you ready. I want you ready. Think about how we treat our kids when it comes to things like sports or even school. I want you ready. Get to do your homework right now. I want you ready for sports. Yeah, you got to get the push-ups ready. Get the burpees going. Get your running done. Okay? Get the weightlifting in because you got to be ready for the fight. I want you ready on that football field, ready on that basketball court, ready this and that. We know as men what it's like to tell our kids you got to be ready. I think my hat here, it's a 511 tactical hat. I like it. The group 511 tactical, they got some cool stuff. And their motto is always be ready. All right? It kind of fits the motif of the battle ready message. You need to spiritually and physically, mentally, it's like to always be ready. How do you do that? Number one, don't let ourselves get soft or complacent. Praying the rosary, devotion to Mary is one of the best ways to do that, to be ready. The quote from the saint essentially says that Mary, devotion to our Blessed Mother, tames the brute in a man and brings out the true warrior in him. The true warrior that has the mindset that says, on my watch, with what God has given me, I will not relinquish this ground. And for you, as the men of JPG, a big part of that is this school. Now, one of the things that I will say, Rick mentioned this, I moved down to Tyler, Texas, because Bishop Strickland invited me to come down. I gave it to Battle Ready Rally in Tyler last December. And we did a Battle Ready Rally for 2 hours, and then we took a half-hour break. We went over to the gymnasium, and we did an hour-and-a-half self-defense training session, which was great. And it was basic stuff. I'm not a Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris type of guy. I'm the type of guy that tries to help you just stand the right way, not get knocked on your butt if you get in a fight, and help the ladies know how to gouge an eye and hit a throat punch nice and solid. You know, and just basic stuff like this. So we're going through all of this, and the response was very good, thanks be to God. And within a week, I was on the phone with the bishop. And long story short, the bishop said, I'd like you to come down here and help me try to build this school back up because the school is dying. Now, it's 4% Catholic in Thailand. You got us beat by a mile down here. 4% Catholic, half the teachers roughly, half the students aren't Catholic. It's a real battleground. We're fighting hard for it. We picked the brain of this man here, trying to get some help from him. Because my job as the Director of Catholic Leadership and Mission, that's the title the bishop created for me, is to go in and try to work with some others who've been brought in as well, to try to help bring Catholic identity to this school. Now, a lot of people got upset when they heard that the bishop was going to raise the Catholic identity and said, well, we're out of here. The bishop said if they want off the ship, they can get off the ship. And he says the school will be Catholic or I'll shut it down. That's the attitude, I think. Yeah, that's Bishop Strickland. God bless him. He's become very much more vocal. You may have seen clips of him at the USCCD meeting back in Boston back in November. He stood up to all his brother bishops and said, how did we let Cardinal McCarrick get to where he did with all the abuse and scandal in the church? He said, this is not who we are as Catholics. Anyway, good man doing good things out there. So I'm coming from there, come down here and see what you have here. Went to Mass yesterday morning with the students there, heard the oath of fidelity that was taken by the teachers, and had the blessing and chance to talk to the senior class for a half hour. And I tell you, you have a gem here. You have a diamond. You have more than that. You have a forward operating base in this battle. That's what you have, pure and clear, straight up. You have a fob here. forward operating base. You are in the thick of the fight. You are in this fight, and you absolutely must lock arms, go shoulder to shoulder, stand on that wall. You have to, man. And it's got to be for the right reason. You got better discipline here than a public school, probably? Sure you do. It's a tighter knit group. It's very, very closely monitored and watched. I saw your headmaster in the hallway just talking to students and teachers up and down, just right there engaging. I'm not trying to praise him, but that's important, right? You got the families come together to do things like this. This is critical and essential. Are there more dads here that just would be here than just this, or is this pretty much all of you? Are there more? Do you think more? Okay. Where are they?
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is our job as men. Go get them and bring them to the next one. Remind them they need to get on that wall too. They need to be on that wall, locking arms, ready to go. Rosary in one hand, holy water in the other. Side up back here. They need to be ready to go. Alphabet group's coming. They're going to regroup and come at you again, just like they did last time. They'll do it again and again and again. They're going to push the drag queen story time, and then what's coming next from them? Why? Because they're cooperating with something that is diabolical. God help them. I pray for their souls. I really do. I'm not judging anybody. But it is clear cooperation with evil when you've got people shoving this stuff, the gay stuff, the transgender stuff, all this stuff down our throats. Look what Drew Brees is going through right now. At this current time. He does a video on Bring Your Bible to School, and he gets hammered by this and told he needs to apologize. I saw that on the news. My wife and I walked in a hotel last night. They were just on Fox News saying, and so Drew Brees apologized, and I just lit up there. Oh, are you kidding? They need to apologize to us. We're trying to tell Christians you need to shut up and sit down and get on the sidelines. No, they don't even want us on the sidelines. They want us to embrace what they're doing and celebrate what they're doing. You know what a lot of Christians are doing? They're just going silent. They're going radio silence on this. They're going dark. They're getting off the grid. They don't want to be involved. No, that's not my job. No, yeah, right, it's your job. What are we thinking as men if we don't realize that when the bad guys are coming, they're storming the walls, and we're not even on the wall. We're back here doing whatever. We're video games, or we're wrapped up in our sporting events. And sports have their place, guys. I'm not against sports, but let's put them where they need to be. It's a game. It's not the future of our nation. It's the future of the salvation of our children, or our salvation. It's a game. I love sports. I coached it. You know, I have no problem with it when it's in its proper perspective. But if we're training our boys, for example, or our daughters in sports only, and not training them for spiritual combat, for the battle for their soul, we're not training them intellectually to be prepared for the fight, having them know the great mysteries of the church, the history of the church, for example. A couple of historical points I'd love to bring up, especially when it comes to men. A couple things I think that are very important, help us men realize what we're called to on a number of levels. And one of these things is not even be afraid of the physical conflict that we may have to engage in one day. And what I mean by that is, let's take a look at 3 different accounts. I love these accounts. Battle of Lepanto, 1571. Siege of Malta, 1565, and Siege of Vienna, 1683. Vienna's had several sieges. They went back in the 1400s, one in 1529 or so, and 1683. 1683 stands out because you bring in the Polish, John Sobieski, the King of Poland, and so forth. Let's start with the Battle of Lepanto. The Battle of Lepanto, famous naval battle, one of the most famous naval battles in the history of naval battles. And it was initiated by a man who is now a saint, Saint Pope Pius V. And he goes to Don Juan of Austria and he says, we got a problem. I'm paraphrasing. I wasn't there. I don't know the conversation. We have a problem. Islamic attack. It's coming. I need an army. I need men who will fight. Men who are prepared to fight. They're prepared in here. They're prepared in here, and they're prepared out here, and I need them now. Don Juan of Austria, young man, under 30 years old, I believe, raises up this army, and men are prepared, and they're trained. And you know what? One of the number one things they're all told they have to do? They have to pray the rosary all the time. Foul language is forbidden. So these men are praying the rosary, and they're preparing for battle, and when the battle takes place, this major naval battle, one of the things that they do is they have on one of their ships, they have a painting. It's a painting of Our Lady of Guadalupe, in Selma, the famous miracle of Selma. And this painting and several others were painted, and several of them were actually touched to the miraculous Selma. This was one of them. It was put on the ships, on one of these ships. When they went into battle that day, the day the battle began, the wind shifted in favor of the Catholic armies. And when you read the description of the battle, I won't get into the details, it is amazing what these men did, went through to fight this fight, and they won. Now, October 7th is a day designated to Our Lady as Our Lady of Victory. It is said that Pius V was sitting in a meeting, and that day, on the 7th, and he stood up. It was revealed to him interiorly that they had won the battle. And he went to the window and he announced to everyone there, we have won this battle. He himself, during all this time, the preparation of the battle, was leading rosary processions, even though he was very ill, he had frail health. He was leading rosary processions through the streets of Rome. He was engaging in the battle spiritually where he could and what he could do as the leader, and he was sending men off to fight. And these men fought and they won. One of the most famous battles won by Catholic soldiers, warriors. I think about that when I think about the great saints, Teresa of Avila, John the Cross, Francis of Assisi, Augustine, Aquinas, all these great saints. We know the church is built on their shoulders, but the church is also built on the shoulders of men that we will never know the names of, that were on those ships in that battle of Lepanto. Men that we will not know unless heaven reveals them to us, or we one day arrive in heaven and get a chance to meet them and see them. Men who were willing, women too, at different times in the history of the church, to actually engage in battles that they hoped and prayed they never would have to. When we lose the interior battle, gentlemen, we will deal with it in the exterior. And when people in the world decide to choose to walk away from the grace of God and cooperate with evil and that evil manifests in physical actions, legally, education, politically, or even physical violence, good men are always needed to cooperate with grace, to stand up and stop the bad. That's what this school is doing. That's what you are all part of. That's what your headmaster is doing. Every time he walks the hallways, this isn't just put on the suit and tie and go out there and be a good example of what a young Catholic man should this and that. No, this is battlefield. It's preparing young men and women to go out into the world and fight for generations to come. You're the fathers of this stuff. You are just as intricately, and in some ways more intricately necessary in this battle. But we need the bleachers full of the fathers, ready to stand on the wall, arms locked, rosary in one hand, holy water in the other, and sayonara on the neck. Point being, spiritual, physical, psychological, mental, whatever it is, we have to be ready for the fight. We have to stand our ground. Battle of Lepanto, famous battle, makes very clear that God will raise up physical armies sometimes. The nature of this, that I'm getting at, the real point I'm trying to get at, I guess, with this is the spirit of these men who are ready to do whatever God called them to in their time, in their crisis, to deal with the battle against the church. Now, we may never come to physical blows. Heaven help us if we do. We may never come to that. But if we do, we need to be ready for that. But we are already dealing with all these other attacks that we know are right there in our face. From the drag queen story time, if we don't see this, if we don't see that this is an attack, and we don't respond, we will succumb to the attack, and we will lose more ground. There's just no way around that. And we've seen this all over the place. When I travel different places, I was in Seattle, Washington, 3 times in the last year. First time I was out there in the last year, they came to me, and some of the people there and said, Doug, you got to watch for something that's coming. I said, what's that? It's human composting. I said, excuse me? They're getting ready to try to pass a law to compost human beings. I said, all right. Next time I'm out there a few months later, someone comes up and says, oh yeah, they're pushing this through. We talked about it. Third time I moved, they said, the governor's about to sign it. I get home about a month later, the governor signs it into law. And this is what happens now in the state of Washington. It's legal now that say, grandpa dies, the family loves grandpa, and they want grandpa around. So they can take grandpa for roughly $5,500, take it to the human composting company, and they will take grandpa's body, put it in a tube, close it up, they'll throw some dirt and some wood chips in there with them, and then they'll close it up, and over about 30 days, with temperature and moisture control, they will reduce grandpa down to roughly a cubic square yard of dirt, grandpa, and wood chips. Give it back to the family, you can spread it in the lawn, you can plant a tree in it, and so forth. This is happening out there. They are treating the human body with such disdain now. It's just part of the earth now. Now, is there a grain of truth in that? There is. The church even teaches there's a grain of truth, that we all become food for worms, we decompose, final resurrection, we're back united with our souls. That's the way God intended to be until sin entered the world. Point being, that's not how they're treated. It's bad in some places. Priests told me when he was out there, I said, Father, what's it like here? He said, I'll tell you. He said, I know many, many priests now, almost no priest that I know will actually wear their collar in downtown Seattle because they will literally be spit on in the streets. And what do you have down here compared to that? This country is so divided in some of these ways. It's West Coast is, in my opinion, I think God's just going to snap the whole West Coast off the tops of the water. You know, I mean, I pray for those people. I know a lot of good people out there. I go out there a lot, more than I want to, more than my wife would like me to. She's probably going to get arrested in California. Next time in California, she says, Doug, you say things, you know if someone's sitting in the crowd, or someone's sitting in the church or the audience, you say things like you do. Like I went after the MJPG, the alphabet group a little bit ago. I mean, that right there, in some places, can get you in legal trouble. Because it's considered what? Hate speech. Yes. A big discriminatory, because I refer to them in some sort of what they would deem as a derogatory word. This is where we are in our country. Canada's far, far worse than us. It's rough. There are Catholic schools out there that are fighting like crazy to stay alive. There are Catholic schools that are trying to fight for their Catholic identity, like we are in Tyler, Texas. And I think the bishop's going to win this ground. Why? Because he's the spiritual head of his diocese, and he is on board. And he has said to me, and he said to me a couple days ago, on Wednesday morning we were talking about it, he said, again, as I mentioned earlier, this school will be Catholic or I'll shut it down. He said that several times now. He's clear about this. He actually hired another gentleman to come out there, Deacon Keith Fournier. He's become a very good friend of mine. We're in the tag team. And Deacon Keith is a former lawyer, and he is the Dean of Catholic Identity. And that doesn't send a message to everybody in the school. I don't know what does. And he is a rock solid man, and it's great to work with him. So it is a fight for the Catholic identity of that school. You have it, though. And that's the blessing. I beg you, gentlemen, I beg you, do not take that lightly. Don't take it for granted. Because the enemy will seek you out and try to chew you up and spit you out to make a point to the world. If I get JPG go down, I can really gain some ground in this area of the country. It's up to you, though. A lot of it's up to you. Just stand on that wall. Now paint that visual in your mind, standing on the wall, watching, guarding, watching over the horizon, watching over any and all surroundings that's coming around your families and around this school. Support this headmaster. Second year, is your second year, right? Second year he's been here. If we don't think for a moment that in roles like this, he's not undergoing spiritual attack, or will undergo, if not already, spiritual attack, and we're not going to ask him about that. That's between him and his spiritual director, his wife, and so forth. But the point is, of course we're going to go spiritual attack when we're trying to do work for the Lord. And don't think for a moment that he either isn't already, hasn't, or isn't going to undergo attacks, doubt, confusion, you name it. A good friend of mine, Jesse Romero, he's another Catholic speaker, travels. Jesse and I are good friends, traveled a lot off and on. We're just at a conference in Detroit roughly a month ago. And he has really moved his ministry work. He's really moved it more towards focusing a lot on just diabolical spiritual engagement and attack. He has done a little bit of training under some exorcists. Obviously he's not an exorcist, he can't do that, but he assists in different spiritual deliverance situations. He has been one of the men who holds someone down while the priest is performing the exorcism rite. And he was describing this to the men at the conference, and he told me this story before about how he and 4 other guys, so 5 men, and he's about my size, about 200 pounds or so, and he said, I was the smallest of the 5, I think is what he said. So these other guys are bigger than him, and they're holding this woman down who probably weighs all of 130 pounds or something, give or take. And she's going through this diabolical possession. Priests said, 2 priests were there. The exorcism rite was going, and this went on for up to 3 hours. He said, we were dripping sweat. We're holding her down. The body's writhing all over the place. And they weren't making a lot of headway. Finally, the priest says, okay, we're going to pray the rosary, and we're going to do it in Latin. I love you to do that. Yeah, that's awesome. And they started it. Within 60 seconds, he said, her body started to change. And it started to flatten out, he said, almost like a pancake. He says, I've never seen a body distorted like this. He said, the whole body was going through this bizarre twisting and flattening sort of thing. And the voices that were crying out from the woman, they were screaming out these words, get her off me. The woman who crushes the head, get her off me. This went on for several minutes. And before they even finish the rosary, the woman comes out of it and she's weeping and she seems fine now. And they finish the rosary and they interview her. The priests are taking notes, what happened and when this and when that, and when did you really experience a change? And she said, when you started praying that prayer in that funny language, she didn't know what that was. When you prayed that prayer in that funny language, everything started to get just even crazier. But eventually they left. So Jesse talks a lot about this, and he and I had a great conversation up there in Detroit about the need for men to be the spiritual head of their homes and take charge in that home. Do you realize that we actually, and this is the church's teaching on this, exorcists have talked about this, and Jesse brought this up in his talk, and I had addressed some of it in my talk as well. It was great because we overlapped on some of these points that we men are, and I forget which saint said this, we are the bishop of our home. We have the spiritual authority to tell demons where to go. But a lot of them don't have the confidence in that. It's a lot of them will treat it like throwing mud on the wall, hoping it sticks. And we have to go in with that confidence. When I, in the name of Jesus, into the precious blood of Jesus, into the intercession of the Blessed Mother, specifically the title Virgin Most Powerful, which seems to irritate the demons more than any other title for Our Lady, is Virgin Most Powerful. So only in the name of Jesus, never on our own, never go toe-to-toe with the devil. It's like getting in a ring with Mike Tyson on steroids. It's just not good. Him on steroids, not us. Mike Tyson's got a great quote, by the way. You hear this one. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. You hear him say that? That's a great quote. Can you imagine getting in the ring with Mike Tyson when he was in his prime? I mean, he was in his prime, and he was just almost psychotically in shape, and just, I mean, boom, 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 done. Imagine a diabolical force far, far more powerful than that. Never get in the ring with the devil. Never get in a match with the devil. Always in the name of Jesus. Always through the precious blood of Jesus. But with confidence, not in ourselves, but confidence in Jesus. Confidence in His precious blood. And confidence in Virgin Most Powerful, our Blessed Mother. And then with that confidence and that authority that we have, tell the demons to stay the hell away from our wives and children. Let them know. Not on my watch. I will not relinquish ground. My wife, my children, God has given them to me. I have the authority, and in the name of Jesus, through His precious blood, through our Blessed Mother, through Saint Joseph, through Saint Michael the Archangel, I bind you and command you to leave immediately. And do this. Do it every day. Do it whether you're with your kids, your wife, or not. Do it. I heard a priest say to me one time, you want to know, Doug, why so many families are falling apart? Because when the man leaves the house to go off to work, he does not seal his home and his family in the precious blood of our Lord. He does not fight that fight spiritually as he's driving out that driveway, so to speak. Fight for your families. Fight hard for them. Because it is a battle. I'm not exaggerating it either. I'm not exaggerating this battle. There's no way we can actually speak to the degree of how bad this battle is. Father Chad Ripperger, an exorcist, gives a talk on this. And Father Ripperger says in the talk that there are 5 main demons, the most powerful demons, that are under Lucifer. And this he gets from the conversations that exorcists have with demons, because they're bound. They're bound by the authority of the person of Christ in the exorcism to have to speak. They have to be truthful. They're bound to. And so in the conversations, they will admit that there are 5 main demons that sit underneath Lucifer, and they sit at what he refers to as the table. So we'll see these 5 demons at the table. Baal is one of them. Human sacrifices, especially the children back in the Old Testament. Lilith is another, Jezebel, and so forth. Anyway, I won't name them all. I don't want to give them any credit. Any attention, I should say. Not credit, but attention. He says these 5 demons, they're all about perversion or death of some sort. Abortion, transgenderism, homosexuality, fornication. Things that would include, of course, things like pornography. All these types of things, he says. In America, for the very first time, we have legalized the action and behavior that fall under all 5 of these demons. We lit up the White House in rainbow colors and legalized so-called same-sex marriage. Transgender laws. I mean, those are all over the place, right? The whole can't even bake a cake. Can't not bake a cake, I should say, right? And the Colorado situation, the one in Oregon, the list of sweet cakes out there, they got blasted, torn apart, and shut their business down because they wouldn't bake a cake for homosexual union of some sort. You know who actually sued them? It wasn't even the company. It was the city. All right? They ended up having to pay $135,000, I think, of their own money to the couple that they would not make the cake for. And the couple wasn't even the one to sue. And it was the government officials there in Oregon. That's why I think the whole West Coast can be snapped off and tossed in the water by heaven. Gotta be plenty of time for good people to get out. The point I'm getting at is that we have legalized all the actions and behavior, the twisted, diabolical perversion of all those 5 demons. This is what Father Chad Ripperger says. He says, it has never been this way. So for people who will say, well, you know, we've always had this before, not like this. Not like this. This is different. And on top of that, we have never had, in America, for example, the number of Catholics who do not faithfully go to Mass at the lowest level that they are now. Back in the 50s, roughly, it was about 80% of Catholics went to Mass faithfully. Sunday obligation, Holy Day obligation. Now it's in the area of about 20%. Back in the 50s, 80, now 20. That's 180 different. Now, this school, and I'm not sure this is a fundraiser for the school or anything, because you guys are already on board with it. I just want to emphasize like crazy. From what I hear and see all over the country, and what I'm already dealing with now, just in Tyler, Texas, and I do think that bishop's he's winning ground already. It's a messy year right now. It's going to be tough. A lot of people have left because they don't like what's happening, but there are a lot of Catholics out there, I think, sitting on the sidelines watching. Is this really going to happen? Is the school going to become truly Catholic? We'll jump back in then, hopefully. So that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're hoping for. Please God help us. But the point I'm getting at here is you have it here already. I know the school is growing. Your enrollment's going up little by little every year. That's awesome. But you will be, if you're not already, a target for the enemy. The best thing you can do is stand that wall and be prepared. And be trained for the fight. Body, mind, and soul. Again, holy water in one hand, rosary in the other, side on the head, ready to go. I'm not advocating violence either, but let's don't be idiots either when it comes to our world and our society. Anybody familiar with the genocide that took place in Rwanda in 1994? Okay, that was prophesied 12 years prior when the Blessed Mother herself showed some of the visionaries what would take place. And within 3 months, nearly 1 million people were murdered in this genocide. And a lot of the reason a lot of them died is because a lot of them didn't know what to do. They had no concept, no idea how to fight, how to protect. They ran to the churches by the thousands, sometimes over 10,000 people in a church. And when the bad guys got to the church, the good guys didn't know what to do to fight, how to protect. And the women ended up being, many of them raped or murdered. And babies, there's a documentary out there on this. There's certain things that just, when you see it, even in a video or documentary, you never forget it, and it hurts that bad. And there's a brick wall here in this particular church, and it still has blood stains on it. And the woman in the documentary says, we do not wash this wall. We want it never to be forgotten. This is the wall where they would take the babies and they would throw them in. Why do these things happen when people cooperate with evil? Sometimes it's because not enough good men know what to do to stop it. So again, I'm not advocating violence. I'm advocating being prepared just in case it should come to our doorstep. And you know what, guys? We need each other in this fight too. You have to know each other well enough that you know you can rely on each other. And please don't take this lightly. You all know what happened when Katrina hit New Orleans. You know better than I. And the craziness that can take place when you get a grid down type societal breakdown moment. I mean, I'm in Nebraska and I'm seeing stuff on the news. Wow, that looks really bad. And I knew Rick, or I could call people from this region of the country, and they could tell me on the phone, oh yeah, this the Cajun Natives. Oh, great stuff. It came out in some ways. But what about all the stuff of people who were traumatized by these things in ways that didn't have to be? And some of it is because we're just sometimes not prepared for these types of events. So when I talk about being physically prepared, a big part of that is having each other's back, knowing each other well, to know that you can count on each other. And then, I would say this, gentlemen, start doing things together that are going to build your camaraderie and your bond. I'm a big believer that men need each other in ways other than the bond of men. And don't take this wrong, if you're a Knight of Columbus, you got Knights of Columbus in here? Because I'm a third-degree Knight myself. Flipping pancakes and selling Tootsie Rolls does not bond us the same as life and death or spiritual life and death matters. So I say, create some sort of a trip. Maybe Rick, Fred, then you put something together. Get the guys out there where some people may die on it. Okay? But that'll help the bonding process, don't you think? They'll come back, well, we lost Bill and Jim. But you know what? We're better for it. Okay, that might not be the best way to go. But what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to say, okay, I'm big on camping trip and hunting trip and pancake feast. Those are helpful. I love those things. Do those things, yes, but do more than that too. And really recognize what's going on in this battle, in this fight. So groups like That Man Is You that I know operates down here, be part of those types of things. And when events like we're talking about, me coming down here more often, and if it works out and we're discussing the concept of what we would do and so forth, and we put on events, we do training events and so forth, get together on that, take time for it. We need to bond in ways that really help us understand what it is to rely on fellow men. Because heaven forbid it should ever happen, but if it does, and my wife or any of my kids are 18 on up, and I have grandkids, but if we ever get some sort of a situation where my children or my wife is in your care, or your care, or your care, any of you, I want to know that you'll help them spiritually, but that you'll fight for them physically. And I want you to know I will do that for you and yours. Your wife and kids ever under my care, I will fight for them. I'll also do everything I can to spiritually help them. If we have that kind of brotherhood as men, then you know we're much more like? We're much more like one of my other favorite stories, the Siege of Malta in 1565. When Malta was under siege, an estimated 50,000 Muslim Turks laid siege to Malta for 5 to 6 months. And in this time, 5 to 6 months of this battle, 50,000 Muslim Turks attacking, it fell to the protection of 800 knights of Malta. 800. And roughly 9,000 militiamen of Spanish and Maltese. And over these 5 to 6 months, these knights of Malta in particular led these battles. Roughly half of them died. But this was a brotherhood of knights, was so deep and so intertwined. And by the way, their whole life was about consecration to Jesus through Mary and train for war. Because they were protectors. They were spiritual men first and always. And they were physical men. There were times when some of these men were so battered and beaten, they would lose a leg in battle, or both legs in battle, and they were in a fort, and they couldn't be evacuated out because we don't have, helicopters and assistants to do that at that time. And so these men, they would cauterize the wounds, bandage them up, and they actually have stories of in the thick of a battle that would go on for maybe a day or two at a time. The guys that had no legs were dragging themselves around the fort to their fellow knights, bringing them bread or wine or water to help them continue to fight. They got no legs, and they're still engaging by helping their fellow brothers. That kind of bond and that kind of a mindset. And you know, there's two sides of us, especially in today's world, because we have our smart screen, our smart TVs, and our flat screens, and our air conditioning, and our sleep number beds. We have all this stuff. So we do like our comfort. But isn't there still something inside here that just says, yeah, there's something about men who have that kind of bond with one another, who will fight for something greater than themselves, that just resonates inside of the man. So, after 5-6 months, they win the battle. They hold off until reinforcements arrive, and the 50,000 or so Muslim, invaders had to flee. Now, the leader was an older man. His name was Grandmaster Jean Lavalette. And Jean Lavalette engaged in the battle himself. There were times, in fact, before he was in, the wall was breached, and Muslims are running in, and he jumps into the battle, and he's flailing away, and he's in this fight. They had to pull him back. If you go down, we're all in trouble. They kind of came back. They pulled the leader back. He survived, but he was engaging in the fights. You know how old he was? 70. So for anybody who's sitting out here thinking, it's a young man's thing. No, it's not. It's a man's thing. And that's what we have to remember that. And if you're older and maybe not in the best shape right now, turn that around. Not the age part, but the shape part. Right? If we can turn that around and we can improve, we'll be in better shape, better prepared. No shame, no foul. Just got to do it. Got to look at each other and say, hey, that's what we're here for. Help each other do it. I had a guy going to me after talk like this at the time. He said, Doug, man, I need some help. He's up 300 pounds. I'm 300 pounds, and I am not what I want to be. He's only 55 or so, roughly my age. And he says, you gonna help us? Yeah, I'll write something up for you. We'll get some things started on a natural level, because the body's a temple of the Holy Spirit. Maintain the temple. Simple. You know what the most sacred physical substance on the planet is? The most sacred physical substance on the planet? The body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus, the Eucharist. Precious blood, the body of Christ. Most sacred without question. You know the second most sacred physical substance on the planet? Your tree in the front yard. Oh, no, not that. The human body. Because there's nothing else on the planet that has within it the image and likeness of God. Nature doesn't have that. I mean, God's life, yes, he animates nature. That's true. But we have the image and likeness of God. It's our bodies. There's a sacredness to this. We don't adorn the body. No. We don't idolize the body. No. But it is, by God's design, a temple. So treating it well so we can do what? The will of God is essential. It's important. And if you haven't been doing that, again, no fault, no foul. Let's just start. Can we reverse certain things? You know, we can. Type 2 diabetes, by the way, complete reversal. Okay? And I'm standing here living proof. 10 years ago, diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, digestive tract disease. You know what the doctor told me? He comes in after my colonoscopy. Oh, did I just say colonoscopy on video? Be discreet, Fred, before you share this with me. I got no problem saying it. I'm 54. Doctor comes in. It's 10 years ago. He says, you have ulcerative colitis. You'll have it the rest of your life. Here's your prescription for your drugs. If that doesn't work, we got stronger drugs. If that doesn't work, we got other drugs. If that doesn't work, we'll do steroids. If that doesn't work, we'll cut your intestines out. Leave you with a bag. Oh, man. Doesn't sound good. My wife's sitting there, she says, well, what can we do about it? He says, nothing. What caused it? We don't have any idea. Should he change his diet? Won't matter. So for the first few weeks, I'm taking the drugs, and I get really weird sensations in my teeth of all places. So after 3 weeks, I thought, you know what, I don't like the way this feels. My wife's online doing some research. We're looking this up, and I'm thinking, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I threw the drugs away. I go back to him a month later for the follow-up, and he says, so how's it working out? I said, well, I threw your drugs away. You did? Yeah. What are you going to do? I'm going to try some dietary changes. I'm going to see if we can get the body to heal. Because I've heard that that's possible. Because I've heard that God made the body to actually recover from things like this. He looked at me, well, what's the diet going to look like? And I told him, and it was a pretty extreme diet. I got to tell you, zero processed sugar. Zero sugar, which means fruit, bread, rice. Rice is a big deal down here, I know. Imagine, no, nothing, because all those things can convert. Some carbs, right? Throw them out! Daisy threw me in the backyard, target feathered me. He looked at me, if I told him what the diet was going to be, he smiled and almost started to laugh and said, you really think you can do that? Oh, that was like one of those man-to-man challenges. Right? That's right, man. I'm like, oh yeah? I sat up and I said, you know what? I got a wife and 5 kids. They're counting on me to be around. You bet I can do this. I can do it for them. And I walked out of there, turned to my wife, and I said, here we go. And she said, yep, here you go. And I did. By the grace of God, I've never touched the medication since then. And I've had some ups and downs and difficult times. Yeah, you have to figure this out, and it's tough, and not everybody's case is the same. But I am probably 98% fine. Due to the grace of God working through natural means, because he has made our bodies to recover from things like that in many, many respects and ways. You can improve your health dramatically with simple diet changes and some exercise. And gentlemen, that makes us better, sharper, smarter, ready to go. When I say smarter, what I mean by that is the brain functions better. You ever have brain fog? You know, where you wake up and you're maybe not just wake up in the middle of the day, you're thinking, like, what am I going to do? What the heck is going on? And in that moment where you just get a lot of that dietary, that's all it is. Most of it is. All right? And these are medically proven when it comes to this stuff. Right? So I bring this up because as men, if we're going to be ready for the battle, the long-term battle, the generations to come, our children and grandchildren that are really counting on what we do now as men. I mean, imagine us going back 30, 40 years when we saw this stuff creeping in. When Roe v. Wade happened in 1973, you want to go back and ask those people, what were you thinking when you voted for this politician, that politician, who put that Supreme Court justice in, who allowed this to happen? When contraception became prevalent back in the 60s, you realize contraception was never accepted by any Christian religion in the world until 1930 in Anglican Church, the Conference of Lambeth, the first time they accepted it. And from then, it started opening doors. Do you ever want to go back 30, 40, 50, 60 years, look at those people and say, what in the world? And then when pornography started to really get on the market, becoming the mainstream, people like, Hugh Hefner, God help that man's soul. He has now stood before God. We can't judge him, but man, the damage done by the pornography industry. And where we are now, where every single one of us knows this battle, we know that it's there. It stares us down every day, and our kids are being chewed up and spit out. Oftentimes, we're giving them this when they're in grade school, and there's no filters on it, and worse than that, worse than the no filters, there's been no formation in here of our kids to have the strength to stand up against the lies and threats and temptations that could come through this. And this school's working on that. That's one of the things they're doing here. You know that. That's one of the reasons your kids are here. So this battle is so thick, so deep, so real. But do you ever want to go back to those guys in the past and say, where were you on the battlefield? Why were you not on the wall when the enemy was coming in to breach that wall? What were you doing? A lot of them are caught up in tailgating right now. Meaning, caught up in the world, in the pleasure, in the entertainment, in the fun, and the excitement of what they can get out of this world. And again, there are good things in the world, yes, but they have to have their place. And that place for those things is always after fighting the good fight for the glory of God and the salvation of souls. That's what the church has called us to from the beginning, the battle for souls. Paragraph 409 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church illustrates this. It says it very clearly. If you ever want to think to look it up, 409. Remember the cleaner, 409? Okay, now you remember it from that point right there. Paragraph 409 states, I won't tell you the whole quote, but it states clearly that our Lord tells us that man's existence on earth is dour, the word means intense, dour combat with evil that stretches, as our Lord tells us, from the dawn of man to the end of time. We are in dour combat with evil from the beginning to the end. That's why when we pray the Hail Mary, when we say at the end of it, pray for us now and at the hour of our death, as this goes on. This will go on for us. It will go on for your wives, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. What kind of men are we? Will we stand on that wall? Will you as JPG men stand on that wall, arms locked, ready to go, ready to stand in the thick of the fight? Ready with, again, rosary in one hand, holy water, sidearm, whatever it might take, that you are ready for the fight. Good, moral, strong men. Which means every single one of us, we have to take it upon ourselves to be well-trained for the battle. Those men in the Knights of Malta, in the siege of Malta in 1565, were so well-trained in that battle, that's all they knew. That it is said by historians, military historians and experts, that it could have been 3 to 4 enemies against one knight, and that was not a problem. He was that good. He didn't have to call for help because he was that well trained. He knew how to fight that well. To be the type of father that when something happens in the home that you know is a spiritual attack of some sort. And as men, we already know what to do. I got my holy water here, got my rosary here. I'm going to drop my knees, I'm going to go into prayer mode. All right, and I'm going to attack what I have to here spiritually that's coming into my home. I'm also going to sit down and talk with my son. If I know it's a problem with, maybe my son is getting bullied at school, or maybe he's bullying someone. Whatever it may be, I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to clear it up with him. I'm going to help him. I'm going to communicate. I'm going to explain it. I'm going to teach. I'm not just going to come down with a heavy hand. I'm going to engage in the battle, because the battle is something that's trying to take my son or my daughter mentally, emotionally, spiritually away from what truth is. And I'm going to get in there and I'm going to fight. I've told my kids this over and over and over. There is no one on this planet, no one who will fight harder for you, faster for you, take more bullets for you, go through more walls for you than your dad. Now my daughter's married and her husband needs to be the one to do that now. And I told him that. That's your job now, Tom. He says, yes, sir. But I'll be right there for my daughter, the same thing. And I tell them that because I want them to know that their father on earth will do everything I can to make sure they are as prepared as possible for the world and for the eternal life. But I've got to be ready to do that, which means I've got to be trained. One of the things I do when I talk at men's conferences, I bring up, a lot of these points, and I'm talking at a conference in Indiana. And I said to the guys, I said, look, your family's not there, about 1,000 guys. I want you to shout out the answer. Who loves your families? Oh, I love my families. Would you fight for your family? I fight for my family. Would you take a bullet for I take a bullet for my family. Would you die for your family? I die for my family. I said, what happened to your family after your dad? Oh, I thought of that, yeah. I said, so what's the answer? And I'm waiting. What's the answer? Some guy in the back. Learn how to fight. That's it. Learn how to engage in combat. Spiritual, physical, whatever it is. Learn it. And if you guys as JPG men of JPG, start developing that type of camaraderie and training together, you will not only be a better man personally and healthier, stronger, more prepared for whatever conflict, spiritual, intellectual, physical, but you will have brothers like you never thought you had. But you all have to be the ones ready, willing to do that. A lot of guys, we might want that, but we're not sure we're ready to step up and do it. And it takes a few just to say, yeah, I'm in. Where do we go? Where do we go? Like if I said right now, who want to get in, do some burpees? Let's just do burpees. You know what the burpee is? Jump down, push up, jump up, jump in the air. And I say we do burpees until someone throws up. Who's in? Who wants to do it?
It won't be long.
So most of you are like, until what? I heard David still on the video talking about that, about guys who complain, I can't exercise, I got no time to exercise, I've got no fitness center to go to, I can't afford to go to it, blah, 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 blah. He says, you don't need a fitness center. If you have a body and a floor, you can exercise. He says, I go to hotels and travel a lot, I'm going to a fitness center down there. And so I goes, look, if you're in the hotel room, you can do burpees until you vomit. That's what he said. I turned my wife, let this guy. But what I'm getting at is, it takes training. We got to train for it. Those knights of Malta, they trained. That's why they were able to win the battle. Okay? Pope St. Pius V trained spiritually, so he was able to hear the voice of God and tell Don Juan Bosco, we need an army to be ready to go to battle. All the saints trained spiritually to be ready to engage in the demons that would attack in one way, shape, or form. And if the men of JPG train, you will be able to fend off whatever comes out of this school. And not just because, again, it's a school with discipline and it's got great education and it's going to help prepare your kids for college and so forth and such. The deeper reason this school exists and why it came into existence is because the need to preserve the faith in the hearts and souls of these young kids that will one day be adults, future husbands, fathers, mothers, wives, priests, religious. That's why it came into existence. That's why good schools like this do. Preserve the truth in our world. This is our time. We're called to fight this fight in these ways now. John Paul the Great has been called to rise up, and the good people who brought it to, they've done it, and you are part of that. You are absolutely part of that, an integral part of it. It's now your time, and there will be some in the future, God willing, the school is around in 10, 20, 30 years, and you all might be done, some of you might be passed on, some of your kids are all going to be gone, maybe your grandkids are going to be coming, maybe not, and regardless, you will have to play your part at this time. One more battle I'm talking about, Siege of Vienna, 1683, I mentioned at the beginning. 1683, estimate, depending on historical accounts, will say there were either 150,000 or up to 300,000 Muslims who had surrounded the walls of Vienna. Vienna had been pummeled several times in the past, obviously, as I mentioned, 1400s and 1529, I think was another, and then 1683. And what happened in 1683, they're getting hammered, and they know they're going down. And when these Islamic attacks take place, it's not, I don't jokingly say it's not pretty. It is beyond sick. Women, in particular, are horribly treated. We know this. I mean, the stories, for example, of the Armenian genocide in the early 1900s were up to 1.5 million Armenians, mainly Catholic, who were brutally treated. And how the women were treated in particular, I won't even describe. It is that evil. And why are women treated like this sometimes? I mean, everything from the sexual assault, rape, issues. Why? You know what? Women embody something that really offends the devil. It's a reminder of the Blessed Mother. I heard a priest put that way once. And every woman is a reminder to the devil that God brings life into the world through her womb, and that God brought salvation into the world through the womb of a woman. So there seems to be a particular evil that women have to face sometimes at the hands of men who cooperate with that evil. Which means good men, you better be ready. You know the famous Edmund Burke quote, right? All it takes for evil to triumph is good men to do nothing. To sit on their backsides and their lazy boys and their flat screen smart TVs and just say, no, it's not my job. Before I tell you about Vienna, let me tell you about this. My friend of mine, Patrick Madrid, he's a Catholic speaker. We were at a conference together one time. He was talking about this story that he heard. A man wrote him a letter, and how much longer ago?
Mass is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Love it. All right. I couldn't do that. Okay. And so, Patrick Madrid is telling the story. And he's telling the men, he's just giving a talk on encouraging the men to be ready to engage. Similar to what I'm talking about here, but he just takes a different angle than I do. But the goal is help men realize we must, in here, choose to engage in the battles of this world. That's in essence what he was talking about. And he's reading this letter. And he said, I want to read it because I don't want to get it wrong. I don't have a letter, and he didn't give me a copy of it, but he said I can tell the story. And this guy writes a letter to me. He says, Patrick, I was walking home one day, and I heard you talk about engaging in the battle and such. And I'm walking home one day, and it's nighttime, I'm walking past a park. And as I'm going past this park, I hear in the park a scuffle taking place. There's a woman screaming for some help. You can tell she's being attacked. And all I thought to myself was, I can't do this. I'm not a physical guy, I'm not an athletic guy, I'm not in shape, I'm not a fighter, I'm just going to keep going. So he keeps moving on. But then he starts thinking, man, I guess I'm hearing the voice, I gotta do something. So he runs into the darkness. He doesn't know who's who and what's what. He can't make out color or facial features, anything. He just knows who the guy is, and he knows there's a woman there screaming, and he goes to the guy. And he's like scrapping, and swinging, just going at this guy, not knowing what I was doing. The woman runs off and jumps in the trees and the bushes to hide. Now this guy's like most bad guys. Most bad guys are cowards. They really are. My friend Jesse Romero, again, he was a former police officer out in Los Angeles County for 20 years. He said, I'll tell you, most of those guys, he chased down, he says, the moment somebody puts up a reasonably solid resistance, they're out of there. They don't want that. They just want their mugging or their assault, their rape, whatever, and they want to get out of there. So this guy was putting up a reasonable resistance, bad guy runs away, woman jumped in the trees and bushes to hide. Good guy's now shaking it out, and he's composing himself. Oh, he says to the woman, ma'am, it's okay, you can come out now. He doesn't hear anything. Silence. He pauses a little bit. Ma'am, it's okay. You can hear maybe a sniffle, something. Ma'am, it's okay, you can come out now. The guy's gone. Finally, he hears a voice. And this is what she says. Dad, is that you? Yeah. It was his daughter. The consequence of his inaction would have been her demise. What is the consequence of your inaction or my inaction if we don't stand on that wall right now in the face of what's happening in our society, in our church? We cannot be men who are timid. We cannot be soft. We cannot make excuses. We cannot make 911 our first self-defense move. If a bad guy kicks in your front door, literally or spiritually, our first move has got to be, I engage. Call 911 while I engage. And it's through spiritual means or physical means or psychological means. It's protest in front of an abortion mill. It's get down there in that library. If you get that drag queen, alphabet group out there, you get down there in that library, you protest, you say, no, not on my watch, go on the wall, it ain't happening here. And then you rally the other men because we need more men in this fight. Good Catholic men who will rise up and say, again, not on my watch, I'm on this wall, it's not happening here. When the siege of Vienna was going through that traumatic time in 1683, and even the kings of Europe were scratching their head, what are we going to do about this? One guy comes forward, a blessed monk, Blessed DeMarco, he's blessed now, comes to the kings and the leaders of the European armies and countries and says, you need to turn the authority of your military over to this man, King Sobieski, John Sobieski III. He knows how to do this. He'll handle it. And so they did. And Sobieski, you know how we men are. Imagine the meeting. In fact, there's a really kind of not so well done movie of this. You can find it on YouTube, for example. You see it's on Amazon too. You can find it. It's the Siege of Vienna, 1683. Do search for it, you'll find it. And the acting is so-so. It's not bad. I love the guy that plays the monk, DeMarco. But when you see them discussing, Sobieski's got this attitude, there you're going to take you apart, But he says, I'll take it on. And he does. And he leads the battle. Now, again, estimated 150 to 300,000 in the different camps I've read. I've heard different numbers, but there were a lot of Muslims down there, and they were in camp, and they were vicious, and they were fighting 24/7. They had this drive, and they were going nuts. And Sobieski takes his men up to the top of a very unusual strategic position. And they put these big wings on their backs. These big old wings. And then they ride, the cavalry rides down this mountainside. 35 to 40,000 men riding down, those wings flapping, making this bizarre sound, terrifying the encampment of the Muslims. They ride into battle. That was a great thing that happened right before the battle. In the movie, at least, there was a young guy sitting on the horse next to Sobieski, and Sobieski's sitting there in his hero pose, which we should all practice the hero pose for our wives once in a while. Okay? I encourage that. You got to give her this once in a while. You're welcome. If you come in from work, I'm home, honey. I'm here for you. So Sobieski's sitting there, and he looks at this young guy, and he says, "Are you scared going to battle?" And he says, "No, I'm okay." Like a teenage kid. And he said, "It's okay, son. We're always afraid in our first battle." Now, I don't know if it's clear or not. I don't know if you noticed. Is that really his son? It is. I say, it looks like it's his son. He's turning to his own son. It's okay. He's telling his son, "Go in and fight. It's time to fight." Do we say that to our boys? Do we tell our boys, "Yeah, play hard on the football field, but that is not a fight"? The fight starts here, of course, spiritually. It's the battle for soul, your own soul, by defeating the enemies through the grace of God, the enemies that are coming at you spiritually, but also being ready physically for the battle. To be that kind of a man. Like the guys in 1941 when Pearl Harbor was hit, those young guys, they lied about their age. You know who the youngest guy was that ever signed up for World War II? 12. He was 12 years old. He got in. By the time he was 14 in the Navy, he'd done something so above and beyond the call of duty, he received the Medal of Honor for something he'd done at 14. Oh, incredible. Our young men of today, you've seen the memes out there if you ever look at social media. Men of 1944 storming the beaches. College boys, college men storming the beaches of Normandy then, college men now on their campuses needing their safe spaces because they've been offended because somebody took their frappuccino away at the coffee shop or whatever it is. All right? We have become so watered down, so soft. What happened to masculinity? Now we get this toxic masculinity garbage thrown at us. And I'm thinking to myself, this is so diabolical, guys. So we have to be men of God, true men of God. Men of MJPG who will stand on the wall, protecting the school and everybody that is affiliated with it. That type of man. And Sobieski there, with a young man there, his son, ready for battle? Let's go. They rode down into the encampment. They went right into the heart of the encampment. Went right after the Grand Vizier himself, Mustafa. Mustafa fled because he was terrified by this incredible show of confidence, the grace of God working through these men willing to do battle for the faith and to protect the people of Vienna. They won. They won that battle. They were horribly outnumbered. Just like the siege of Malta, horribly outnumbered. They won the battle. They were faithful to God, faithful to the church, and they were willing to fight. And they won. You know what they found when they got to camp, though? They found these beans. True, they found beans. They know what they were at first. Then they realized you boil these beans down and you get coffee. That's how these Muslims could fight around the clock. They were all caffeinated up. They took the coffee back to the Pope, and it was referred to by some at the time as the devil's drink. But someone was saying that the Pope had said we could baptize this or something like this. And isn't it funny because now we have a group out there, Mystic Monk Coffee. But Blessed DeMarco was a Capuchin. Yeah. Exactly. So that's what I've heard and read historically, that Cappuccino ultimately stepped back to this blessed monk who was the one who initiated that these kings would come together, turn the authority of the military to Sobieski, and Sobieski would lead the battle, and these men went in and fought in their time, in their place, against the crisis of evil that they had, and they were victorious. But this is our time. I'm not going to keep you much longer here, and I'm going to take some questions if you have any, but I do want to say this. Gentlemen, this is not an easy thing to do. And the number one problem, in my opinion, is what happens an hour or two after you leave here, or tomorrow, or next week even. Talks like this can inspire and motivate. Not because I'm so inspired and motivated, that's not what I mean. Anytime we get together and discuss things like this, it can be inspiring to us. We can go, yeah, you know what, it's all laid out, it makes sense. You can read it, you can see the video, you hear a speaker, and you're fired up for a little while. Inspiration has its place, definitely. But as a former Navy SEAL, I heard in a talk one time say, inspiration is like emotion. It will fade. Discipline is what you want in a foxhole for the fight. Discipline is individual act of the will. I choose to do what I must, and I discipline myself to make that happen. So if you've got health issues, for example, discipline yourself to start eating different and exercise. If you've got, you have no idea how to fight, discipline yourself to start learning how basic self-defense or firearms training and get with the right people to do that. So you'll learn the proper way to do that. If you're having a hard time spiritually, discipline yourself to just sit down and say, without fail, 15 to 20 minutes a day, this becomes an extension of who I am. That to me, not just to me, this is the prayer life, the sacramental life, the training of the soul is by far the most important. Everything else is animated by this. But don't leave out the other components because they are part of who we are as men, and they're part of the battle that we face. On average in America, every 2 minutes a woman is assaulted. How tragic if we would be the type of guy that hears the assault happening and walk away. Thankfully, that one man didn't. He says at the end of that letter, I could have gone home that night after, turned on the news, and just seen another news story of another woman who'd been assaulted in the local park. It would have been my daughter this time. He said, I just shuddered at the thought that I would have allowed that to happen. But how many times do men turn a blind eye to this, that, and the other thing? Whether it's a physical assault or something especially spiritually assaulting us, and we don't step up and do what we should do. We don't want to call each other out to put each other down ever, but we do want to do what Proverbs 27:17 speaks of. Iron sharpens iron, as one man sharpens another. We have to understand, we in Scripture are referred to as iron. We're not referred to as wood or plastic. They didn't have that, of course, but balsa wood, paper mache, whatever. You pick some other substance. That's not what we are. We're iron, because iron, look what it does. It spans distances, it holds things up. It can be turned into weapons that can do a lot of good things. Tools that can build, absolutely. But how do you shape iron into something? Usually it's a lot of heat and a little bit of pounding, right? Whether it's a giant forge where you've seen these big old beams going through, you've seen the workout, those things come rolling out, those giant flattening the beams and shaping them. They're coming out red hot, right? Yeah. It's hard for iron to shape iron. And it can be difficult for men to shape men. But that's what we're called to do. And we have to do it unabashedly. We have to do it without any kind of stupidity or timidity. We have to do it with confidence and courage. We have to do it because it simply has to be done. There's far too much at stake if we don't. When we lay our sword down on the battlefield and walk away from this fight, we say, no, that's not my job. We say, no, I don't have to take care of that. We will see this chaos continue to unfold. And I don't think that that's what you type of men are about. I don't want to be that type of man. And to be part of this school here, part of John Paul the Great, in these days, is absolutely not an accident. You guys are here for a reason. And how blessed, they're not paying me anything to do this, by the way. This is paid advertising for the school. But how blessed to be part of institutions, organizations like this. I feel blessed to be in time under this bishop, under Bishop Strickland, very much so. He's one of the few bishops who is speaking out publicly on these types of things. And I've gotten to know him personally somewhat, and he's very adamant about this. We have to bring back the faith. If you ever see him in a video, personally, he's 3 times more animated and excited. He gets going sometimes when he's talking, his homilies, you talk with the person, he is on fire about how we need to fight for the church these days. I'm very blessed to be working with him. But I'm blessed also to be part of coming down here and even sharing this time with you right now. And hopefully God willing more in the future. That being said, do you guys like the idea of, I'm not trying to put any pressure on anybody or leverage anything right now at all. I just simply want to know, do you guys like the idea of me coming in maybe periodically and working and doing some things, some trainings, some different stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. All right, if you guys are on board with that, and the leaders, the powers to be, we can swing this. I'd love to come down here. 4.5-hour drive is not that bad. Easy. I came down with my wife. This was great. We just had our youngest child move out of the house, so he's 37 and finally got out of the He's 18. He's 18. Now with his 2 older brothers. But we're we're empty nesters technically now, so my wife is down here with me on this trip, and it's nice to be able to travel with her a little bit, because for 30 years of traveling, she rarely would go on trips with me, so it's been great. She's coming around patio tonight to watch football game and has for 3 minutes of water. She's going to be there. I'm going to pick her up after this. So. But guys, I would love to work with you all on things. So yeah, we're discussing a little bit to see if we can figure something out. Because come down here on a regular basis and deal with you all and do some training would be fantastic. We'll do some body, mind, soul training. We'll get ready for battle. But with that being said, does anybody have any questions or want to discuss anything in particular? I mean, you're the MJPG. Let's get into it for a few minutes here and kind of hammer some things out. Yes, sir.
So my name is Wesley. The school that you're at, what's the name of it?
T.K. Gorman, Bishop Gorman High School.
So do they have a men of Bishop Gorman?
They just started. Yeah,
all right.
These guys got together and they started a Friday morning prayer group. And I'm starting to do, I've got one and I'll do another one later this month. A ballerina training day is what I call it. And we did kind of what I'm talking about, but it's possibly here. We do a spiritual talk, Bishop came and gave us off, and then we did a real basic church safety kind of self-defense thing to give guys an idea how to subdue a threat in a church, not firearms at this point, but you know when you get somebody who walks into church belligerent, screaming, acting strange or weird, or you get somebody you're not sure if they're a threat, a lot of guys sit there and they're not sure what to do. We're talking about telling guys you have permission to at least put yourself in a position where you can contain or subdue the threat if you need to. So we're doing that. We've had one meeting and the guys, 45 guys show up and they're spreading the word, thank God, they're excited for it. I think a lot of men are. So anyway, I know you got more you wanted to say, but that's what I'm doing up there, yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder if there'd be a way to connect the two groups, like like they do sister cities. I wonder if we could do brother groups or something.
You know what, see, that's a great idea. They would be, I think, massively impacted by what you got going down here. And of course, it extends it for you guys as well.
I think both ways.
Both ways, yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. I know Keith and Frank, the two guys that are on board, really, they initiated it. And then when we got there, me and Deacon Keith, we were able to help them kind of push it over the edge and get it started. They were doing a lot of, well, what do you think, guys? Should we this? And we think, and they're great guys. I love these guys. They're great men. And Doug, what do you think? I said, go. When? I said, now. When should we do the prayer group? This Friday. That's less than a week. Then it's too long. What are we waiting for?
Tomorrow.
Okay, so 6:30 to 7:30 in the morning. They gather around the flagpole on the busies, 3 lanes each way. It's called the Loop 323 around Tyler. And they're right there around the flagpole and they pray for an hour. Guys show up, they come and go as they can before work. And then the first Friday of every month, they're going to go into adoration for an hour into school. But they were waiting. Well, what do you think? And they said, what do you think, Doug? And I said, go, when, now. Why? Because we have to. And so I think they'd be lit up if they knew something else was happening. So that's a good idea. Yeah, we'll connect it. We'll connect some dots here, man. So you knew the questions coming. Yes, sir.
I think you talked about the good education and the formation. I think God did a bait and switch on all of us, because more important to me is this group here than the education of my kids almost, because what God's going to do with these 40 men here is going to be phenomenal. Our FOB is the Adoration Chapel.
Right.
Okay, we got about 12 hours empty. Well, we got to step it up. We slacken in that, but that's what has kept this school going. It's not the board, I'm on the board. Definitely not the board.
That's a great point. I'm glad you said it. I didn't know you had 12 hours open. If only we could find, 12 men out of 40, and maybe you guys are already doing an hour. That's an excellent point, and that is it. I mean, that is the source of the summit. There's no question. We cannot deny it. We should not deny it. We'd be foolish to try to deny it. Eucharistic adoration, devotion to our Lord, making the presence of our Lord number one in our lives, the lives of the world. And that's where it starts. You got a great little chapel there. My wife prayed there yesterday while I was talking to the students. She's my prayer supporter. My friend says, our wives are like our little snipers while we're at battle. They're on the high ground praying for us, picking off enemies, spirits of the we're in the field there swinging away. But that is key. And if you have 12 hours open, if you're not even all the men that are part of this school, that should be filled like that. Enough of us men should just say, yeah, you know what, these are some serious times. I mean, we got a major exorcist like Father Ripperger saying, we have never legalized to the demons these things in our country. That should be enough for us to say, okay, all right, that's enough. I'm getting off my backside. I'm putting the hobby down. If I can't get, is it 12 hours throughout the whole week? 12 hours for the whole week?
Spread out. Yeah.
Spread out throughout the week. 12 hours in a week. That should be a no-brainer, guys. You should get that filled. So awesome. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, sir.
Okay, so what impresses me about the position that you're in right now, so you've got on one extreme the situation in Tyler, where you've got a school that's just about to expire because it's lost its Catholic identity. So that's one extreme. And then you've got JPG on the other extreme. We have a strong Catholic identity. We've got for the most part, our core values in place. I would assume Tyler had that at one time. You go back 50 years, or I don't know how far.
It's been around 60 years. You're right.
If you could talk to the men at Tyler 50 years ago, put us in that position. I'm just thinking, what would you say is the worst aspect of the slippery slope that we face to keep what we have intact? That's a difficult question, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we got the two sides.
Yeah.
So we don't end up where they are 50 years from now.
Right. The first thing that's on my mind on that is simply, one by one, apathy creeps in. Little by little, we lose sight of the root goal, the origin of why it exists, to defend the faith. We lose touch with the reality of the battle, and one man at a time starts to say, it's not a big deal. It's okay to focus more on this than that. And that's why every single man is important on that wall. Every single father and husband, every single teacher, every single individual who's part of the system, the school, has to take it upon themselves to acknowledge the individual responsibility to recognize the enemy is real and to fight like crazy against them. But when one guy here, and then another guy here, and another one here, and you see this in movies when military actions taking place, and they're just picking off here and there, and you pick up this guy, and you start weakening this, and then you flank them, and a lot of times, like, the devil's really good at working little by little on the slippery slope. I'm not afraid of waking up when I joke around about this sometimes. I'm not afraid of waking up, and all of a sudden you snap. I'm going to axe murder the neighbor's cat. I'm going to go crazy, do something nutty. It's the little slips here and there. It's the I pray my rosary every day, and then one day I missed it. And you'll miss it once in a while. That's not the point. The point is I miss it one day, and then I think, I missed it 2 days. That's not that big a deal. And then the third day, and then by the fourth day, it's like, I'm getting used to not praying. It's the little slip. So you just go to confession every 2 weeks. I missed it. I'll go every 3 weeks. Okay, that's not terrible. Okay, and then it's a month. So that's not bad if you're not in a state of moral sin and such, But now you're starting to lose the discipline of where you set it. You set that bar, you're lowering it little by little by little by little. Pretty soon it's been 6 months, then it's a year, and then it's like, I'm really having a hard time understanding what is truly sinful. Because the sensitivity of the conscience has become slowly deadened. So that slippery slope, I'm glad you mentioned that, it's a good term. Watch the slippery slope. Somewhere 60 years ago when they founded that school, it's been around 60 years, they had those things in place. They must have. And then as the years went by, what I heard was people started to look more at the academics. They started to pay more attention to the athletics. They started to say, hey, it's a good college prep school. We got a lot of kids, really smart, good teachers. Now the focus became more of what college my kid's going to end up in by going here, this sort of stuff. And little by little, the Blessed Sacrament isn't being visited in the chapel anymore. And when that starts to happen, as you mentioned earlier, then you really got a problem. Because now Jesus is no longer the central aspect of this. He's not the key. It's the athletics and the academics and that sort of stuff. And that is what happens. I've been doing a lot of communication with older families who used to go there. I'm kind of the public relations guy in some ways. I'm meeting with families who pulled their kids out of school, and I've had meetings with people that have gone, one guy, 3.5 hours. And you all know me by now, I'm a speaker, right? I talked for 15 minutes in that 3.5 hours. That's how much he had to say. He was telling me it was this, and it was this, and then it became this, and Doug, my heart was broken, and I pulled my kids out. And he was going on. And another lady, 2.5 hours. My wife was with me on that one. I don't meet with the women alone. I always have my wife with me. Guard yourself on things like that too, by the way. A little side note, it was a public restaurant, and a woman wanted to meet with me, talk about it. Turned to my wife, she says, I'm there. You know, so my wife and I are listening to this woman 2.5 hours she talked. She had nothing evil and nasty to say about the school, but heartbroken and torn. And a lot of it goes back to they let little things slip. The little things. You start pulling nails out of a wall, that piece of sheetrock's going to fall out. And what holds a piece of 8 by, if you're construction guys, all you know, 4 by 8 piece of sheetrock, that's your sheetrock block. It's held together by either adhesive or screws. Sheetrock screws, right? Rock screws. You see, you pull up, the whole wall comes down, the whole sheet falls off. It's little things affect the big picture. So the little slippery slope can be, we don't need to fill those hours of adoration. We don't need to worry about getting that one extra thing done here, one extra thing. We start lowering the bar. And the fact that you brought that up is good because you should all be very careful about that. We all should be very careful in our own lives, our own spiritual lives, families, and so forth. But this school can easily die if you let it. If you don't pay attention to the little things. You know, every kid walking down that hall, teach your kids at home. So when they come to the school and the headmaster and the teachers are working on this, teach them at home. When you greet someone, when you talk to someone, look at them in the eyes, shake their hand, speak an articulate, well put together sentence. All right, no grunting, not allowed. How's your day going? Okay, good day, bad day, I don't know what you're saying. You know, not allowed. Speak. If we all do this at home, those are the little things we're doing at home. So when they get to the school, it affects the bigger picture. That's an etiquette type of thing, sure. That's an interaction thing with other people, sort of thing. But that's important. But spiritually speaking, teach our kids at home the proper way to make the sign of the cross. So it's not slapping flies and scratching an itch. It's actually the sign of the cross. So when they're at school, now they're illustrating it to others at school. Everybody's together on its little things. Those are just a couple of examples I gave. So I'm glad you brought that up, the slippery slope. Because you're right. You got a great school. What, 12 years, I think? Your 12th year, is that what it is? Okay? Imagine 60 years Gorman has been around. And I do believe the bishop gets his way, and I think he's going to. I think the school is going to come around. I got a lot of hope for that school, but it is not in good shape right now. I say that with complete confidence in the grace of God working through us who are involved. If we cooperate and don't get too lug-headed here, we do what God wants. I think by the grace of God, we will bring that school back. But bless it, please help us. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, I've been to that school. It's a great school. Bishop Strickland is a great bishop. It will succeed. That's what you have to have, is a strong bishop that wants it. But I wanted to zero in on the suggestion that they had about the sister relationship we have between perhaps JPG and them. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that JPG would be the missionary and they would be the receivers of our beneficence. But because chances are, if we did get together to help each other, we may find that we're helped as much as they are, and vice versa.
Right.
But this is the particular suggestion, in addition to different kinds of communications and even video conferencing. Maybe once a year we could meet halfway, because Tyler's not that far, but 2 hours is even closer. Find some little city between, and everybody could get together and have a big party and share notes. And the point that I'm making is that one way to keep what you have is to not get self-absorbed, but try to think of others and help others. And it strengthens what you have, helps them, and then they help us. That's the point.
That's a great point. These are great ideas. I'll share this when I get back there with Deacon Keith in particular, the Dean of Catholic Identity, because he and I are brainstorming constantly, strategizing, type of war room moments there. You know, how are we going to do this and that? And this is going to be a great idea to bring to him, to have some sort of a sister type of school combination. We'll start kicking that idea around, praying about that, because you're right. We can kind of get brought in on ourselves. We start thinking outside. I can think of only my family. I got to protect my family. It's my responsibility to do so. But if I can bring other families in, like I said to you guys earlier, if I can work with others, and we can work together and build a camaraderie and a bond, and when we start knowing we can rely on each other if there's a crisis in our family situation, and there's a strength that grows from that, we're that much stronger, we're that much more unified. Same for us with the school system. That's a good point, I like that. Because the battle is so rough anymore, and I am in a unique position today because I get to travel around the country and see it, and I get to see what's going on in certain places. And there's some schools that won't invite me in and stopped inviting me a long time ago because I was talking about things that irritated and bothered them so much that after the conversation, after I was there, we had to talk. I got a call or an email later saying, "You'll never come back again." They had a meeting after you left. One actually out west in Colorado said they had a deanery-wide meeting to discuss the quote-unquote tragedy of having you in here. Wow. And what bothered them? I did the passion meditation in the school. They were bothered by the passion. And the main character, Horatius, when he yelled at him, "You were all there! You said you had nothing to do with his death." That's the character of Horatius in Passion. And Horatius is the soldier